All right. Well, today we had a 3120 John Deere tractor here. It was a no start, and what it would do is the dash would light up, just jiggle all over the place, and then turn off, and then there would be nothing, no power anywhere. So as you can see, this got kind of extensive to figure this out. This was kind of a difficult one to figure out. What I ended up doing was I tore it down to where I could get to the harness, because I noticed that I didn't have power anywhere. I didn't have power to the ignition, didn't have power anywhere. And if I probed the front of the panel on my fuses, you'd either have all the fuses measured to either be good or no power anyway. And then they're a little dirty, so they're really hard to read if you just took it out and look through it with light. And so what I noticed was that the main power fuse, which would be this guy 30 in the corner, it didn't have any power at it. And what ended up happening is, let's see if I can find it here. There she is. I ended up trying to wiggle it out so I could test it, and there she is. She lost a leg. And what ended up happening with this guy is it had enough of a connection, it would work, but if anything happened to it, it ran power through it, it would just stop the connection. The reason why we got to this point where we took the fuel tank off and everything else was to get to the wires to really test like your power source, because I was concerned that there might be like a fusible link in here that was bad, or one of these wires back here was broken, because obviously, like it's chafed there, it's chafed there. There's a lot of little issues, and I really had to make some space so I could actually see it. But what ended up happening is, once I got to this point, I've got my leads down there on the starter, because you've got your battery cable goes to the starter, and then this chunk goes up here, runs under the dash, under the fuel tank, into the main fuse panel, and then up and everywhere else. So what I did was I got to this point and I tested all my posts here. There was zero power at the switch at all, which told me that there was something from either the fuse or the supply. Once I got to this point, I started probing around, and there was only a couple spots that had power. And what I ended up finding was that open post right there is technically like a live post that has power running through it. It's like a bus bar, basically, theoretically. And then this wire out, which is the other leg of that fuse, should have power. And I noticed that it had power there, but it didn't have power here, and it didn't have power here. So therefore I said, okay, well, I guess that's might be my problem. I got power, but no power. That's probably a fuse, but the fuse showed no power on the other side, either one of these legs, and hence why I decided to pull it out. And there you go. But one of the things I did to bypass that actually is I took a jumper from the starter, my power source, and I took a little blue wire and I shoved it in that hole in the output side of that 30 amp fuse. It's kind of hard to see in there, but where my thumb is, this big wire right here, and then all of a sudden everything turns on and it works and it sounds the way it does. So problem solved. I ended up taking that socket apart, pulled it out, cleaned it, and put a new fuse in, and now we just got to put this thing all together. But as you can see, sometimes actually there's a funny story. I had somebody had mentioned on Facebook the other day. They said, hey man, I'm looking for somebody to come out to my house and look at my truck because we're struggling with it. And the amount of comments you get is, call this guy, call Joe Schmo, go over here, do this, watch a YouTube video, Google that. And unfortunately, Google isn't going to tell you to do this. Google isn't going to tell you how to diagnose it. Google isn't going to tell you all the things you need to look for along the way of this journey. So sometimes when it gets to stuff like this, you get weird electrical issues. It's best to have a professional that can get really deep in. I mean, look how many tools I have to have just to get to this point. Diagnostic tools, electrical tools, test lights, jumper cables, and it's not always as easy as they try to make it look on YouTube or on Google. So when it comes to difficult problems, difficult things, give me a call if you're in my area. Of course, if you're on YouTube watching this, you may be in Arkansas, but hey, I hope this helps you out. 3120. I wish I could have shown you what the dash looked like, but it would just basically just flicker all over the place. Let's see if I can make it do it. Kind of just does that right there. That's all it did without the key. But now obviously it's working correctly because I can just turn the key on and there she goes. So if you have questions or concerns, this was a 3120. This guy definitely gets his use out of his tractor. Unfortunately, he stays outside a lot and fluids are bad, filters are bad. It got rolled over, so there's oil everywhere, as you can see. Air filter's pretty bad. So, you know, that's what we're here for. I'm just showing you what it's like to do tractor repair and maintenance in the field. This one's out in Port Orchard area of Washington. So if you have a problem, I might have a solution. Thanks, guys.